All right, recording in progress. So, hello everyone. You've all met me. My name is Roddy Flynn. I'm the Executive Director of the Delaware Broadband Office. This is a webinar for the scoring portion of Delaware's BEAD application. So, that's what we'll be covering today. Laying some ground on the next slide. Well, actually, this is the agenda, so the next slide. Here's everything we're going to go through. It's going to be amazing. There's a lot of information included in this, so some of these slides are going to move through fairly quickly without going into a lot of explanation because there's a lot of text up on the screen. I want to be able to focus my time on kind of the more impactful parts of it. So we'll be skipping through some stuff fairly quickly. This whole slide deck will be available to you afterwards, along with a recording of this entire event. Okay, table setting. Everyone here right now should be a representative of an organization that was approved from the pre-qualification phase, and we're now in the scoring phase. This is not a public webinar. However, it is being recorded, as you heard me say a little earlier, and this recording will be put on our website as part of our NTIA transparency requirements. So while it's not publicly available for people to attend, it is publicly available for people to watch. And I'll say to anyone in the public who might be watching this later, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to give us an email at bead@delaware.gov. Some other housekeeping notes to mention. We won't be covering anything other than BEAD scoring during this application. Nothing about ARPA, nothing about Digital Equity Act, BEAD non-deployment funding. That's all for other webinars in the future. Everything here is based on Delaware's initial proposal, Volume 2, which you've all heard me talk about at length. Because it's in our initial proposal, Volume 2, which has been approved by our federal overseers at the National Telecommunication and Information Administration, it is set in stone. So don't bother submitting questions complaining about the requirements of this application. We cannot change them. We're in stone now. We had a public comment period. Some of y'all participated in it. That was your time to complain about what we were doing. Now is the time, frankly, to conform with what we are doing because the decisions are made. Hopefully it's not too burdensome on anyone, but it may be, and that's life. As I said, this is not open to the public, but it's being recorded and will be posted publicly. Q&A opportunity, just like the pre-qualification phase, there's a very formal opportunity for Q&A during this process because we want to be sure every applicant has access to the exact same information. So you can ask questions today in using the Q&A function in Zoom. It's up top for me. It might be at the bottom for you. I don't know. And so you can submit a question using Zoom Q&A. Or if you need some time to process, you can submit questions to bead@delaware.gov. The questions must be sent to that email address. Do not send them to me directly. Send them to bead@delaware.gov. That's how we track them. There is a deadline to submit the questions, close of business September 12th. That's a Thursday. After that, you can still submit questions. We cannot guarantee that they will be answered in a timely manner. So do everything you can to get them in by September 12th is the only way that we will guarantee to answer every question submitted by September 12th, as long as it is on topic. All right, I'm going to zip through these slides real quick because if you're here, you've already done pre-qualification, so you are familiar with BEAD. For anyone watching this webinar later who doesn't know about BEAD, feel free to take some time to review these as I flip through them, and also email me at bead@delaware.gov, and we can get you more information about the BEAD program. But basically, this is a big, huge federal investment that is being pushed into the states from President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, also called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Delaware is getting a big chunk of money to connect everyone in the state to high-speed internet infrastructure. That's what BEAD is. We're really excited to be administering it. The Delaware BEAD program, we are getting $107 million from that pot of money. There are a heck of a heap of federal requirements that we have to meet in order to get access to that money. The one I'm highlighting here is our initial proposal, Volume 2. As I mentioned before, Volume 2 is what actually controls everything we're doing here. So it's something we drafted, got approved by NTIA. Everyone here, I'm sure, has read it. All of our applicants who made it through pre-qualification, at least they should have, and at least they have certified that they have read it, and that our final document we need to submit to NTIA is called the final plan, and that is for after decisions are made when it comes to who gets these grants after we finish the scoring portion of this application. All available at that link at our website. Scoring application, that's what we're here to talk about today. All right. Only applicants that have been pre-qualified may participate in DTI scoring application. So if you are an ISP or electrical co-op who's watching this webinar, maybe on our website, and you're thinking, hey, I want to apply for that, it is unfortunately too late. You have to be within the pre-qualification already. You have to have passed the pre-qualification already in order to participate in BEAD at this point. What y'all will see now, y'all, the pre-qualified applicants, you have not gotten the application yet. You will get it very shortly after this webinar is over. You'll notice a lot of stuff in there that's related to scoring, and you might notice some other things that are not scored questions. They still have to be answered. This will make more sense when you see the application itself. There are other reporting requirements we have from NTIA, other information that we have to gather. So the entire application is required, even though not every question may actually impact whether or not you get a grant award. The scoring phase timeline. I emailed you all with a timeline before. That timeline has moved up a bit, not tons, but a bit, about a week. So there are very good reasons for that. And so this is the new timeline. The main thing you should be looking at is the overarching deadline, which is October 18th, about 2 months from now. So that's the time you have to, a little less than 2 months from now. So that's the time that you're going to have to do all your preparation, put together your bids, and send them in to us. You will have a while, about a month, with just the written materials before we actually open the Bonfire portal. Bonfire is the same portal used for your pre-qualification application. So you can be getting things ready now, but you can't upload them until later in September when we open the portal. Scoring criteria. All right, this is the big one. This is what we're going to go through kind of slowly, and then there's some other stuff we're going to go through a little faster. So the way this is going to work is we have identified about 5,700 broadband serviceable locations in Delaware that do not have access to high-speed internet. That includes all of our unserved and all of our underserved locations. You will be getting a list of all of these locations keyed to the FCC BSL numbers. I should say that also includes community anchor institutions. There's only 7 of them in Delaware that we identified. So what we've done is break the state into 8 grant areas. Those areas are what you will bid on. You will submit a price and a speed to deployment, everything I'm going to go through in a second, for each of these grant areas that you would like to apply for. You do not need to apply for all of them. You can apply for 1. You can apply for all 8, anything in between. Some things I want to make really clear. This is all in the IP2, but I want to triple underline it. You must apply for a whole grant area. You cannot only apply for part of one. If you are awarded a grant area, you are committing to build to every unserved and underserved BSL, every CAI within that grant area. That includes every multi-dwelling unit, apartment building that is identified as being underserved, including the internal wiring for that building. This is, again, within our IP2, so it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. What we mean by that is you can build up to the building and then contact the property. You must contact the property manager and ask, say, we have money, government money, to do this build. Can we come into your building and wire it up within? The property manager may say yes, they may say no. You need to plan as if they will all say yes, because that's what you need to put in that's what you will be responsible for. So you need to build that into the cost that we're going to talk about in a second. Your entire network must be fiber up to the door of the home. No hybrids here. Pure fiber end to end. That is a NTIA requirement for this phase of the program. Absolutely no exceptions to that requirement. You will be permitted, and you'll see this in the application, to chain grant areas. Meaning, we understand this is a pure fiber wireline application that you can't, it's unreasonable to expect an ISP just to build one wire through a whole grant area to get to another grant area. So you can say, we're only going to take area 3, which is northern Kent County, if we also get area 4, which is southern Kent County, right? You can chain in that way so that you aren't obligating yourself to creating a non-contiguous network. So be aware of that, and you'll see very clearly in the application how to chain your applications together. Scoring criteria. There's 400 points that you can earn in the application. The application, we hope, is objective enough that you will be able to calculate your own score before sending it in. So you're going to know exactly what it could be, hopefully. Cost is our single biggest criteria, 140 points, 35% of the total. Fair labor practices, 100 points, 25% of the total. Affordability, 84 points, 21% of the total, and speed to deployment, 76 points, 19% of the total. All right, this slide, the next one will be, this is my attempt to scare everyone, and I hope that it is successful because this is very important. These grants are fixed amount sub-awards, so sub-grants. So what that is different than a contract in some ways. The main way being we cannot alter the award once we give it to you. You are bidding, and that bid locks you in completely to what once we agree to the award, you are completely locked in on what you are doing. So in other programs, other grants, there's maybe an opportunity to say, okay, we're going to build to this area. It's going to be $5 million. And then once you're out on the road, you realize, oh, there are longer driveways than we thought. This terrain's a little different. We're actually going to need $6 million to do it. You cannot do that under this program. Once you say it's going to be $5 million, that's it. No more money. Not only will I be really angry at you if you come back and ask for more money, we actually have no ability to give you more money. It's against the rules of the program from the federal government. It cannot be adjusted. When you give us a cost and you give us a timeline, that's the cost of the timeline. Some notes about timeline later for acts of God and that kind of thing. So think very seriously about these commitments. Do not underbid this program. Again, I know you are all competing with each other, and so there's an incentive to give a low price so that you can get a good score. Obviously, we want to be really responsible with taxpayer money, and we want everyone to give us the lowest price possible. But also, it needs to be a reasonable price that you can actually commit to do this build on. That's what's important. Do not underbid. And emphasize how serious I am about this. If you try to get out of a commitment later, because I believe that is because you underbid this program and thought you could maybe get more money, get more time later, we do reserve the right to pursue all civil and criminal penalties against you. Anyone attempting to get out of one of these commitments once the SOW is signed will be referred to the Delaware Department of Justice Fraud Division if you try to get out of this commitment later. I want you to take this very, very seriously. I'm generally familiar with all these applicants. I don't think this is going to be a problem with the folks on this call, but I really do need to emphasize this, how serious this is, and also emphasize how different BEAD is from other programs. So with that, take your commitments very seriously as we move through what you're about to propose in your bids. Minimal outlay, that's the cost. So this is what we're looking at is basically how much is it going to cost the government in order to get these BSLs served in each grant area. You must match at least 25% of the total cost. So what you will send to us is, here's how much you bid on this entire area, the total cost, and how much it will be from the BEAD outlay, how much government money you need to complete this build. That government money part is the part that you're scored on, not the total cost. So as a result, you could say the total cost is $10 million. You have a 25% match. Therefore, you can charge the government no more than $7.5 million. However, you may, as a company, in order to increase your competitive stance, say it's going to be $10 million total, but we're only going to charge the government $5 million. So it's a 50% match. That will increase your BEAD score because all we are looking at is the total cost to the government. There's a very clear again, we wanted to make this so that you can tell exactly what your score is going to be. For every one of the grant areas, we are going to announce a reference cost. So what you propose as your BEAD outlay in your bid will be judged against our reference cost. Very clear formula. 140 points is kind of the benchmark. That score can go is that your exact score is based on where you fall as a percent of the reference cost. So if you ask for, say, 80% of our reference cost, you get the score assigned will be 60 because 140 minus 80% is 60 points awarded. Then if you go above the reference cost, you lose points. One thing you'll note is that if you bid 0, then you'll get all 140 points, which is delightful. It's a little mysterious why you would do that if you're applying for this program, but hey, you know what? I'm not going to tell anyone how to live their life. So you can get all 140 points if you do that. Not really anticipating that here, but you can go pretty high on this and get all the points that you may need depending on the costs. These costs are fully inclusive. So it's everything that you need to do as a company to get this network built. Everything on the back end, everything, the costs have to be related to the build. And you'll see in the NOFO, You'll see in the NOFO what the allowable costs are. But you bundle them all together, and that's what it is. Whatever it's going to take your company to do to build this is what you need to build into the cost. So look in the NOFO for all the allowable costs. They aren't listed in the slide presentation. They're discussed a little bit later. But also, when you submit your costs, we're going to talk about this a little later, you're going to submit a budget that justifies your cost. So, if you come back, let's say our reference price is $5 million, and you come back and say, well, actually, it's only going to cost $8 to actually build this entire grant area. And so, that's not a credible thing to say. And so we ask everyone to put together a budget to justify exactly what they're basing their cost on. Like a lot of things in this, that budget was going to be evaluated by us for credibility. Credibility basically means, does it pass the smell test? And that's really what we're looking at. And we think that this is a good faith offering. That is how we are going to judge whether this is credible or not. So it's incumbent upon you as the bidders to put enough detail into that budget plan to make sure that we know that it's credible. Next, fair labor practices. Actually, I'm going to jump to this one because it's easier for me to go through with that. And then I'm going to go back to that slide in a second. So there's 100 points in here. Again, we're hoping this is very easy for you to calculate your own score before you send it in. Certificates of compliance, that's kind of the baseline. That gets you 5 points. Now, the real meat of it. Committing to using a 25% directly employed workforce as opposed to a contracted workforce, you get 25 points. That's great. If you are committing to unionized labor as part of your plan, that is 5 points. And that's unionized labor for any part of your workforce. There's no, like you see for directly employed, that's at least 25%. Unionized, any portion of your workforce that's unionized, you get those last 5 points. Meaning, we're very transparent about this, you cannot get full points in the section if you do not use a unionized workforce. Safety and training, do you have an in-house training program? Or do you commit to using contractors with an in-house training program? 30 points. Do you commit to having at least 25% of the workforce be locally hired? That gets you 15 points. Credible workforce plan that promotes the hiring from marginalized communities, 15 points. And finally, a narrative description showing your history of addressing factors included in BEAD NOFO, section 4C1E. We're asking for you to make commitments. You can see what that is. We're asking you to make commitments, see what you can do. So with all of these, not only do you have to make, if you just check the box, right, and you say, yep, we're going to use we have an in-house training program, or we're going to require our contractors to do an in-house training program. That is 30 points. However, in addition to making that commitment, you have to explain yourself a bit. So you have to attach a workforce plan that backs up those commitments, and they have to be credible. What does credible mean? It means beyond conclusory statements. So if you say, let's say you check the box, we are going to use in-house training. Great. And then in your justification for that, you say, we are going to use in-house training. That is a conclusory statement that is not sufficient to be credible. We want to know what kind of in-house training. Have you done that program before? Is this something you've invested in historically and you're going to keep going, or something new that you're going to found for the first time? What will that training look like? What will the requirements be, right? How many of your workers will have to go through it, or be offered the opportunity to go through it, right? You have to explain yourself in a credible way. Again, actually, I should remind us you can use the Q&A function if you would like to submit any questions during this presentation, but you can also submit questions later on if you'd like to, up until September 12th. Affordability. Per NTIA rules, affordability is based against your price for 1 GB per second symmetrical service. So you tell us how much it would cost in your pricing plan to bring 1 GB per second service to the addresses to your addresses. What the monthly cost, all-inclusive monthly cost, including renting equipment, that kind of thing. If it's above $100, you don't get any points. If it is below $100, you can earn points for how far below $100 you are. Again, must be inclusive of all fees and taxes. And again, you can calculate this on your own before you even send it to us. It's pretty straightforward. You can see here, and you can refer to this later when I send you the slide deck, exactly it's also in IP2, so you should have already seen it. Exactly kind of how the formula is, so you can calculate it yourself and make it very predictable for yourselves. Speed to deployment. This is how quickly you can get this built. As I mentioned, the folks in Delaware and rural Delaware and who don't have internet have been waiting a really long time to get internet, and we want to be sure that our constituents are getting this as quickly as possible. So, speed to deployment. It is a formula based on how many months faster than 48 months, which is the total time of the implementation of the program, you can commit to completing this build. The minimum timeline is 18 months. Basically, if you say you can do it faster than 18 months, we don't necessarily think that you're credible. So, I mean, you can get full points, though, if you say exactly 18 months, right? So it's based on a percentage, as you can see, same as everyone else. You should be able to calculate this on your own. One thing I want to mention about speed to deployment is, once again, this is a commitment that you are making, right? So you will be held to this commitment. Just like everything I've said, just like the cost, just like the workforce, if you say that you're going to require your contractors to have in-house training for safety, you better do it. We will see that you don't. You'll have to report to us about it. And so you're making a commitment here on the timeline. Here's what I'll note about that. Obviously, things happen in life that can throw you off a timeline that are out of your control. We want your timeline to reflect what is fully within your control, meaning, let's say that you put in your timeline, okay, it's going to take us 2 months to put together information to submit our first permits to Delaware, right? You then actually can't really control how long it takes Delaware to answer those permits. That's, we hope it'll be as quickly as possible, but you can't fully control it. So you should build into your timeline when you will submit those permits, right? When you will do the walkouts, when you will do the engineering. That is the thing that you're committing to. If there's also, let's say an act of God, a huge hurricane that God, knock on wood, God forbid, that can really throw you off your timeline, that won't be held against you. That is something that we can build in, and evaluate in the time. However, this is still a very important commitment that you are making to the people of Delaware and that we will hold you to. So if it turns out that you're saying, oh, we said it was going to be 18 months, but it's actually going to be 36 months, the standard for us to allow that's going to be pretty high. And again, if I have any suspicion of bad faith, this will be referred to over. If I think that you said 18 months to get the points, but didn't actually mean it, even the whiff of it, there will be a full investigation. We reserve the right to pursue any civil and criminal penalty against anyone who tries to take advantage of the Delaware taxpayers. There's a federal program of the American taxpayer in this way. So this is a very serious commitment that you should make. Don't try to game the system here. But we do recognize that acts of God do occur. Additional application components. Let me check my time real quick. That'd be great. This we're going to go through a little faster. There's a lot of information on the slides through here that you can review later. Also, of course, it's all in IP2 and explained in the application for what you need to submit. You will need to have a full plan for every grant area. Again, show us your work. How are you justifying these costs? Must be certified by a professional engineer. We want to see networks, designs, and diagrams. Importantly, you do not have to do walkouts during this phase of the thing. One thing I will say about cost, I'm sorry, that I should have mentioned earlier or flagged earlier, is that you can build into your cost a contingency fund. So because you really don't have time to walk out this whole thing in the next 2 months. So, there could be some cost overruns, right? That kind of thing. Again, any cost overruns you must bear. We cannot change the grant amount. However, it's an allowable expense from NTIA to have a line item in your budget for contingency. And I encourage you to do that because that's what will ensure that the budget sticks to where it needs to be and you don't end up defaulting on this grant and have me refer this over to the authorities. So build that in. It's an allowable expense, contingency fund. Again, it plays into how you're bidding against each other and trying to get the lowest cost, but do think about that. And we do expect a network design that you can send in so that we can tell you've done your homework and that when you say this is what the cost is going to be, we know that you're not just pulling a number out of thin air. Financial information, letter of credit. This has been debated to death across the country, so you should all be very familiar with this by now. We will have a template letter of credit for you that you will get shortly after this webinar. There is a conditional programmatic waiver that you can submit if you're not able to obtain a letter of credit. Information about that in the templates we're sending out and on the NTIA website. That's all NTIA based. That's not things that we made up here in Delaware. So a lot of what we do there, not a lot, everything we do here will be based on NTIA standards pretty directly. other budget narrative, other templates that you will see in your in the packet that I send out after this is over. A legal opinion. This that you will be in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. This must be signed by a Delaware lawyer. This must be signed by a Delaware lawyer. This must be signed by a Delaware lawyer. There's a slide at the end which lists some laws that you should consider, but we cannot give you an exhaustive list of every possible law that could come into play. But, you know, we trust that you are sophisticated parties that have done this sort of work before and know the laws that come into play. So we do need that. It must be signed by a Delaware lawyer. Did I say that already? You could have a federal portion, you know, signed by a lawyer not from Delaware, but this is a Delaware specific program in a lot of ways, right? We have Delaware land use laws, Delaware permitting laws, and we want to be sure you have someone locally here who can attest that you will comply with those. We have to have a plan for how you are intending to tell folks that you have connected their home or business to the internet. So you can write out what that plan is going to be. Certifications, a lot of certifications. There's templates for all of this in the thing. The main one, again, I feel like I'm beating a horse with this one. I know y'all know this, but I need to keep saying this over and over again. No additional funding can be given beyond what your BEAD award is, and cost overruns will solely be borne by the applicant or subgrantee. You must certify that. No one can claim to be surprised. Project-specific certifications and staffing. You know, again, this is all in IP2, so I won't beat it to death. Description of the process. There's several references to the federal interest period of the project, how long it's going to take, and also the useful life of the network. You know, these are all things from NTIA, so be sure that you can make these commitments through that time. Reporting requirements, getting closer to the end. Oh, great. Wonderful on time. Again, you can submit questions in Q&A here or email them in later. Either one is completely fine. There's a lot of reporting requirements for this program. They are not all set by us. A lot of them are set by our federal partners. You must agree to follow all of them. Some examples up here are some of the reporting requirements. NTIA may come up with new reporting requirements as this goes along. In fact, I think we can all bet that they absolutely will come up with new reporting requirements as this goes along, and we all agree to follow them. It's absolute condition of this program. We don't know what they're going to be, but you must agree to whatever they end up being later. We all have to. It's NTIA's world. We're all just living in it. So whatever they come up with is what we're going to have to do. And you have to be aware of that. One important thing, there's a requirement in our IP2 for a low-cost plan. You must certify that you will offer low-income customers who are at your BEAD addresses. This is specific to your BEAD addresses. A plan of $30 a month, including all taxes and rental, equipment rental, all that kind of stuff. If you cannot do $30 a month, if you can't, for your business can't justify that, you can submit a waiver up to $60 a month. See our IP2 pages 83 to 86 to explain more about that. You can submit your waiver with the application and tell us what your low-cost option will be, and you have to justify how whatever your low-cost option is affordable for low-income people in Delaware, and how it is not workable from your business perspective, from your revenue requirements to offer $30 a month. The low-cost plan can go up year to year based on the price index. See IP2 for more information about that. Reporting requirements for projects in 5 million over. Again, I'm not going to spend any time on this. It's all from NTIA. You can see here, it's all federal requirements. So take a look at this slide and let us know if you have any questions. Build America, Buy America. We've beaten this to death, just like the letter of credit. It's an absolute requirement from NTIA. There's specific waivers, which we encourage you to take a look at. You must certify that you are meeting all BABA requirements in your sourcing. NEPA and the National Historic Preservation Act. So this program must follow NEPA and National Historic Preservation Act in a way that other federal broadband expansion programs do not. So this is a serious thing that we're all going to have to do together. We are going to be hiring a consultant to help us with NEPA and National Historic Preservation Act. You won't be out there alone doing this, but it will be primarily your responsibility to ensure compliance with these programs, that we submit that you submit what is necessary up to NTIA. Having said that, as I mentioned, we are going to have our own consultant who will help guide you through this process if you're successful at getting the right information up prior to construction. Also mentioning this is something you should build into your timeline and something out of your control because it's up to NTIA to actually approve it. So that is something you should account for, and we will try to move as quickly as possible with NTIA. And I'm sure they will try to move as quickly as possible too. One reason that Delaware is moving so quickly with all of this is one thing we hope is that we get in early, get our NEPA, our NHPA in early, and maybe it gets reviewed a little faster as opposed to if we're with a big chunk of all the other states kind of in the bottleneck there. So that's our hope. And as I mentioned, we'll have a consultant to help us with this, but this is something you should definitely be aware of and that you will be required to report on. At the end of your project, there will be a closeout report. Nothing should be surprising to you. But these are the reporting requirements. Again, NTIA may change them, and we're going to roll with it, Couple final notes. After this presentation, you will get an email. Everyone who registered for this presentation will get this email, along with everyone who's been previously identified with the applicants in the sign-up that happened a few months ago. That it'll have a packet which will have our application materials, template certification, CSV files with the BEAD eligible addresses key to the grant areas, and a draft SAL. Now let me talk about this for a second. One thing that can really slow us down in a way that I don't want is a long negotiation over a SAL. Now, we shouldn't have too long of a negotiation. I'm looking at all of you and all your lawyers, because a lot of these requirements are from NTA are fully non-negotiable. However, in order to prepare for this, we put together a draft SAL reflecting the NTA requirements. This is not at this moment binding on anyone, but I wanted to flag it for everyone, have your lawyers look at it and build into your timeline how long you think it's going to take you to dicker with us over the SAL. That's on you. I mean, we're being very transparent with this. So that at that point, that's on you. That is not something that we are considering to be, like an act of God. Negotiating over SAL is not an act of God. It is a choice that you are making. A lot of the SAL that we'll send you, and you'll know what these are non-negotiable points because they come directly from IP2. They come directly from the BEAD NOFO. Can't negotiate over those later. Pay attention to the second appendix of this SAL. That is stuff that could be more negotiated because it's stuff that it's terms and conditions that are a little more specific. I don't anticipate that they will be huge problems. However, that's in that appendix, and you'll see what it is immediately. Those are the kind of conditions that perhaps your lawyers have a particular privacy or non-disclosure clause that you like to use for your company. As long as it's substantively the same, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But I don't want to hold back and forth over these SALs for months and months and months. And if you think that your lawyers are going to do that, then build that into your timeline and it'll be scored. Do not expect a curing opportunity on any of this. So you can send us stuff. It should be in final form. If you then, if we then decide that the workforce plan you submitted is not credible, that's the decision. We are not guaranteeing. In fact, we are going to be very, very hesitant, almost to the point that I cannot imagine why we would do a curing and give you a chance and send it back to you and say, oh, like we didn't find your workforce plan to be credible. Please fix it. I don't see us doing that. So don't expect it. Send us your best and final work for our consideration. Checklist. I won't read through this point by point, but all things to consider as you put this all together. This is also laid out very clearly in the application that you will receive shortly after this webinar ends. Laws to review, some options up here. Check out Unit 2 CFR Part 200. There's also a lot of guides on the NTA website to Part 200. It does apply. Again, these are fixed amount subawards, so federal regulations accordingly apply. But take a look. These are all things you have to certify that you will comply with. Key links at the last slide. You can put any questions in the Q&A. Totally understand if folks need a chance to digest this, but also a chance to to see exactly what the application says before you send in questions, and that's totally fine. Questions should be in by September 12th in order for us to guarantee that they will be answered. If you get them in answer after September 12th, we can't guarantee that they'll be answered before the deadline. As you might imagine, with any procurement, we have a number of internal approval processes and stuff. So that's why we like to have that question deadline. And we want to make sure, again, that everyone is getting the exact same information in response. You can submit questions. I see one more question in there already. I'm going to vamp for a minute just to give folks another chance to submit questions. One important thing, these deadlines are fixed. I'm going to send out the new schedule. I know I sent a schedule before that I've already changed, but this is the final one, I promise. And you all do it through Bonfire, just like you did the pre-qualification webinar. All right, let's take a look at the question. Will DE identify which version of the FCC's data the BSL IDs are based on? Yes, we will. So what we'll send you will be a list of BSL ID numbers from the FCC. So you must have, and yeah, Amy, if you need to type an answer to, the short answer is yes. Also, I should have mentioned on the line is Amy Meacham, Josh Boki, Sophie Hovis from CTC, our wonderful and brilliant contractors who are helping us every step with this. So if Amy would like, I see you're typing an answer, Amy, and you can do that. But the short answer is yes, we will give you that information as well. As a result, you have to have basically a license in order to match up that FCC BSL data with the addresses. But for anyone on this call, that one, I can't imagine that would be a problem. Any other questions you can put in Q&A? Again, you don't have to put them in Q&A. You can put them, you can send them in to us later, but I do want to continue to vamp. That was a lot faster than I thought it'd be. I thought that was going to take forever. Maybe I talked too quick. I don't know. My folks, Tammy and Jackie and Connor will tell me if I talk too quick. And Michelle, our team over here at the Delaware Broadband office, will tell me if I talk too quickly. But I wanted to be sure to get through it. So you'll get this email after this is over with the slide deck, the application, supporting documents, all that. It should be pretty straightforward. There shouldn't be any surprises, but you will have a chance, of course, to ask us questions in writing. Obviously, we're not taking any in-person meetings or calls about the application. Is there a KMZ version 8 version of the 8 proposed coverage areas? I will defer to Amy. Oh, you're muted, Amy.
Well, it would help if I came off mute, and I need practice vamping.
I'm a good vamper. Yeah, I can stall.
No, I'm sure we could make that available.
Yes. So it sounds like it might not be available in the email I send right after this. In fact, it probably wouldn't be, but it will be. We can make that for later on. It just might not come out right now. What you will have right away is the list of BSLs that are key to grant areas. So your GIS folks or your data folks should be able to put those over. But we can also do the KMZ files. What are the requirements for the financial forecasts? Again, I'll defer to Amy. Any hard question, Amy, I send over to you. Because Amy's a smart person.
No, so thank you. So there's 2 places that you're going to add information about financials. One is in your project budget, and the other is in the pro forma template. And so that template must be forward-looking for 10 years and provide projections based on the project that you are applying for. And so that might be an individual project area, or if you're applying for multiple project areas, we'll need one for each one. But ultimately, it's a 10-year projection of basic cash flow and information about the return that you expect from the construction of the project.
Great.
We tried to make it as straightforward and simple as possible. So
yeah. One thing I want to explain to everyone, the reason for the delay between when we release the application and when we open the application in Bonfire is, as y'all experienced with Bonfire during your pre-qualification, it's a particular system, and we want to be sure it's as easy as possible for you to interface with as you're uploading this information into Bonfire. So we want to be sure we're taking all the time we can to make it as easy as possible for y'all, so that you can actually get the information up there. So that's why there's a bit of a delay between those 2 things. Someone asked when the different templates will be available. Today, very soon after this webinar is over, you will get an email with templates. I could answer that one, Amy. I did that myself. All right. Any other questions? You can start typing them in. We really do appreciate you all participating in this. I mean, I know that the pre-qualification application was a lot of work in and of itself. This scoring application is a lot of work in and of itself. And we appreciate your interest in serving these folks in Delaware. A lot of these addresses, as you all know, have been waiting a long time for internet access. And it will be a life-changing experience for a lot of our constituents. And you know, with the growth all across our state, new developments, we hope that this will be something that will set the stage for economic development, personal development, academic development going forward. And so we're really appreciative of everyone's interest in participating in this program to this point. And looking forward, you know, your pre-qualification materials were excellent, and we are excited to see what you put together for scoring. So, and I know it's a lot of work, so I do appreciate that. Not seeing any final questions come into the Q&A function, we will bring this to a close. But this is not your last chance to ask questions. Of course, you can send them in to bead@delaware.gov. Send your questions there, and then we will compile them, publish a Q&A document, and then we'll be off to the races. But I appreciate you all so much, and looking forward to seeing what you put together for the people of Delaware. All right, thank you so much. And for anyone watching at home, I'll say, since this is still being recorded, if y'all have any questions, I mean, you can't apply for the program at this point, but constituents, if you looked at this, have any questions about the program, please do feel free to email us at bead@delaware.gov, and we will answer your questions as well. Because we want to be sure that our constituents have confidence in this program and see all the work that the Delaware Broadband Office, all of our applicants are putting in into this. We want to be sure our constituents feel confident in that. So please also, folks at home who are watching this later on, don't hesitate to submit questions as well. Thank you all very much.